Selamat siang Bapak dan Ibu semua. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Terima kasih sudah bergabung dengan kami siang ini di Queensland Hour webinar series bersama TIQ Indonesia. Nama saya Irma Irsyad, saya Principal Business Development Manager dari Trade and Investment Queensland atau kami biasa disingkat dengan TIQ. Sebagai kantor perwakilan pemerintah Queensland di Indonesia, kami membantu untuk mempromosikan kapabilitas Queensland di Indonesia serta menjembatani hubungan antara Queensland dan Indonesia, terutama di bidang perdagangan dan investasi. Tujuan kami mengadakan Queensland Hour Webinar Series ini adalah agar kolega-kolega kami di Indonesia untuk tetap bisa mendapatkan update dari Queensland, informasi terbaru, terutama di bidang pelatihan dan pendidikan. Oleh karena itu, kami akan menghadirkan pembicara yang berbeda pada setiap sessionnya dalam beberapa bulan ke depan. Pembicara kita hari ini adalah Bapak Michael Holmstrom. Beliau adalah CEO dari Stempunks dari Brisbane, Queensland, Australia. Beliau akan berbicara mengenai innovation and entrepreneurship, cross-curriculum implementation of STEM education. Speaker Bapak dan Ibu akan kami mute. Apabila ada pertanyaan, bisa dituliskan pada Q&A box di bawah ini. Bapak Michael akan menjawabnya pada akhir webinar ini. Sesi ini juga akan kami rekam untuk tujuan pembelajaran, sehingga apabila ada partisipan hari ini yang sudah mendaftar tapi tidak bisa hadir atau berhalangan, akan dapat menonton rekamannya nanti pada channel YouTube TIQ yang akan diupload setelah webinar ini selesai. Saya sangat mengerti kalau session ini mungkin agak berat karena habis makan siang. Apabila secangkir teh atau kopi bisa membantu Bapak dan Ibu untuk bisa lebih konsentrasi dalam menyimak penjelasan dari Bapak Michael selama beberapa menit ke depan, saya persilakan mumpung Pak Michael belum presentasi. Oke, baik saja. Saya mulai saja. Michael, I'm turning to you now. Thank you for agreeing to be our speaker today. This is our second session for the series, and I was about to ask you to turn your video, but it's already on. So if you could say a quick hi to our participants today.
Not a problem at all. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Michael Holmstrom. I'm the CEO or Program Director of Stempunks Ventures based in Brisbane, Australia.
Thank you, Michael. All right, so as for your background, our participants attending today are majority from high school, so both private and public. Private are those with a dual curriculum, with both international and national, and also those with using national curriculum. And we also, and I would like to thank our participants today who are attending from universities and polytechnic, private companies, and also our friends at the Indonesian government. And we also have attendees from the provincial government, that is from Semarang, Central Java. And they are from various positions as well, so such as the academic directors, people in charge in science and STEM curriculum, school principals, STEM teachers, and as well as counselors. And as excited as I am, they are eager to learn a lot from you from this session, from this short session, on finding out what possible online STEM programs that would be available for their students. So those in starting from year 4 to year 10, especially those schools using, as I mentioned before, dual curriculum and using English as their main language in their daily teaching and learning process. So without further ado, I would like to hand this session over to you. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. So welcome all to this webinar in a bit of innovation entrepreneurship and especially cross-curricular implementation of STEM education. Now, I've got about 45 minutes now to do something with you. So I'm going to try to cram a lot into this session as much as I can. There's some handouts as well that you get either before this session or afterwards. It's going to help you to go through this session. Well, you can come back and watch this later on if you want. So just sit back and relax, and hopefully you'll learn something from this session. So a bit first about STEM Punks and what we do, just a quick intro. So we're based here in Brisbane, and we used to do education all over the world these days, a lot around anything from primary school to secondary school, but also a lot about teacher PD. Now, the way we do things here is that we are trying to make this into a real world problem solving scenario. So what I mean by that is that rather than just teaching kids coding in isolation, we're trying to pick a real world problem first. And this is very important. We've found that if you just put kids into a room, teach them things like JavaScript or coding in isolation, they learn something, yes. But it's much more powerful to get these kids to apply these skills into real world problem solving. So the key part here is that, first of all, everything we do is developed and designed and delivered by teachers. We've got certification against the curriculum, and most importantly, we're linking everything with industry. So we've got a great network here of industries all across the world, anything from the moon base, NASA, and other leading industries that makes these programs a lot more relevant to a lot more people. Now, we're going to talk a bit about today about design thinking. I'm going to run you through a bit of an exercise around design thinking. We're going to try to take some ideas and transform that into an outcome. When we go through this class today, I'll show you what you can do. So you're basically going to go through a scenario like this with me today. This is our back-end learning management system. I'm happy to share this class with you afterwards, well, if you want to go through this in your own time. So I don't want you to stress. If it's going a little bit too fast today, that's okay, because there's a lot I got to go through. If you want to come back and do this in your own time, all good. We'll give you access to this, and you can do it whenever you want. Now, we're going to talk about design thinking now, and this is a big concept for us. Some of you might have used design thinking before. Some of you might have never heard of it. Either is fine. So design thinking is basically a process to take some ideas into outcomes. And this is really big for us. We want to make sure that we inspire kids and adults to take ideas and transform those ideas into value. And we can use something like design thinking to make that work. I'll show you an example. So here we have our design thinking process. There's a lot of ways you can do design thinking. This is just the way that we've thought about it. What we start doing first is empathizing. We look at how we can understand the emotions behind people's decision, and especially understand the emotions behind the problem. We then go through a defined state where we're really trying to understand the problem, ideation state, prototyping, evaluation, and then iteration. So this process here can be applied to anything. We're just applying it today into a scenario. We're going to try to design a new solution. I'm going to try to teach you some new tools as well. We use a lot of different kinds of STEM tools, anything from robots to drones to coding, augmented reality, virtual reality, and these are just tools. But today I'm going to show you a bit about 3D design, a bit about augmented reality, and we're going to show you a bit about virtual reality as well. As I said, it's a very short period of time to do a lot in, so I'm going to try to stick on track and see if we can go through this exercise step by step. Okay, let's jump in. And afterwards, we'll have a bit of a Q&A. You can ask as many questions as you want, and hopefully I can make some sense and part with some knowledge for you guys today. So let's go back to our screen. Now, when we talk about design thinking here, it's all about turning ideas into solutions. So going through this process of empathizing, defining, ideation, prototyping, evaluation. And this is very important. Myself, I've got about 15 years of experience in innovation, technology, commercialization. I've taken some great ideas into global businesses. And what I've learned is that what stops people from being innovative is the fear of failure and fear of rejection. The sooner we can fail and do that fast, the sooner we can learn. We're going to try to apply that today into this little program. So we start over here with empathizing. The reason being, we want to understand the emotions behind people's decision first. And then we're going to go through this step by step by step. The example I'm going to take you through today is called the gift-giving example, gift-giving exercise. And let's see if I can explain this to you. The challenge here is to design a process to buying a gift. Right? Let's see if I can reiterate that. It's not designing a gift, it's designing a new process for buying a gift. Let me explain that. So if I were to buy a gift for any of you in the audience today, and the goal would be to extremely surprise you, make you happy, and I only had 24 hours to do so, that would be very challenging to do. Because the thing here is that I don't want to have to ask you what you want. That would spoil the exercise and the surprise in the end. So I want you to be surprised, happy, and overwhelmed emotionally by the gift I'm giving you. Now we're picking that as an example because anyone around the world can relate to that problem. So the task is to buy a gift for someone without knowing them. And you have to surprise them. You've got 24 hours to do so. Now, what would you do as a design process to make that a lot easier? It's a hard thing, right? Because if I ask you what you want, I've spoiled the surprise. I might be able to ask your friends, yes, but I've got very limited time here. So I got to try to design a much better process to do that. And that's going to be the design of a new gift-giving experience. So let's go back into our design thinking then. We'll start off by looking at our first step, which is our knowing our user, right? What are they thinking? What are they feeling? What are they doing? And what are they saying? So when we do these online classes, I like to be a bit interactive here rather than just talking. I'm going to start making a few things too. So if I can just go to my top cam here, I'm going to show you what we're going to do. The first step is this. I've got the user in the middle now. So where I am in my steps, I'm basically right here. I want to understand the user first in my gift giving challenge. So what do I do first? Well, what am I, see what the first thing is? The first thing is that what am I thinking, right? And then feeling. So in my case here, I'm thinking, all right, I'm a bit frustrated. I got no idea what to buy, right? I really want to surprise this person. And I'm feeling a bit irritated. No doubt I'm a little bit nervous too, because I want to make sure I can surprise this person, all right? So a lot of emotions involved in that process. What am I doing? Well, I'm trying to find a solution here. I'm sort of trying to scramble for ideas what to do. What am I saying? Well, I'm really annoyed. I want to make sure I can find something good for you, right? So the first step is all about digging deep and trying to understand the emotions behind this. Now, we're going to talk about cross-curriculum implementation of STEM today. And this example is very much cross-curriculum. It covers so many different areas, right? So we're not diving into technology and all this robotic stuff straight away. We're just using them as tools. You can do this in the classroom with any sort of scenario you want. I've just picked this exercise today because it's something we can understand globally what it all means. Okay, next step then, what are we going to do? Well, now we're going to start to define a little bit deeper here, all right? We're going to try to look at the next step. We're going to define the problem. So here we're looking at defining the user's needs, right? What are their story, okay? What is their ideal state? And we can ask open-ended questions to make sure we can get to the end problem. And the reason why the end problem here is so important is that people tend to jump into the solution first before we even understand the problem, right? So when it comes to innovation, entrepreneurship, you have to understand the problem first before you start looking at the solution. And that's what this very important step is all about. So we're now going to try to articulate the problem, right? Visualize the problem. And the reason why we're trying to visualize this problem is because when we have ideas up here, that's all good. But we want to get to a point where we can see these things straight away, right? So in my way of sort of visualizing this, I would say I'm very frustrated. I got no idea what to buy this person. In my head, I've got a vision of the person being very angry with me. They might not say they're angry, but I'm buying this random thing and they got no idea what this is good for. The end result is to surprise that user to make them happy, right? So quite a tricky problem to solve. Yeah. The next thing we're going to go through then is to look into our ideas, all right? And this is a very interesting step. We run a lot of classes with high achieving students. And if there's one thing I've learned from doing this now for about 15 odd years is that perfection is not part of this next step. This is not about perfection. This step right here is about fast interaction, fast pace, to get as many ideas as you possibly can. Because in the end, you want to get as many people to come on board and sort of give you ideas, and you can sort of manipulate ideas, and in the end, refine them into a proper solution, the big idea. So this is a bit challenging with students that are very high achieving. They want to sort of get perfection happening here. We're not going to do that. We just want to look at ideas. So in my head here, I'm going to look at my situation as a married man. I'm going to say that, okay, my wife tells me every year that I'm going to buy her a present, of course, for her birthday. And even though I know her, it's really hard to buy that gift every year, right? So it'd be great if I had something here I can use to make that process a lot easier. So I'm going to look at some ideas. How about if I recorded everything she says during the year? Because then when it comes to birthday buying and buying gifts, I can just play that back, and I can use artificial intelligence, and I can use a machine learning to get this little device to record this back so I can buy the perfect gift. Now, the rule when we run this in the classroom is that we want the students to think outside the box. We want them to think about crazy stuff because crazy ideas are great. It just has to be feasible to do. So if someone said to you, I'm going to build a time machine, maybe not yet, all right? But in my case, building a recording device to record someone's voice during the year and then applies machine learning, AI, to come up with something that actually is meaningful as a gift, I reckon that could work. So I'm going to work with that solution in my case. All right, where are we now? So we're going through this pretty fast, all right? Then we're going to look at how we can prototype this thing. And prototyping is so important. When we run these things in the classroom, we use a lot of cardboard. Kids can glue things together. They can use recyclable material. If you've got 3D printers, they're great because they allow you to prototype very quickly and get those ideas from up here into something tangible. So I show you some ideas over here. This is a new drawer system one of the students designed the other day. So they just working on a new solution for storage in a kitchen, for example. And these 3D prints don't cost much. You know, something like this is probably a couple of cents to print and it's fairly fast. So we can use STEM tools like 3D printing, for example, to get that rapid prototyping to happen because it's so important to get those ideas from here into something more tangible. Now, if we don't have 3D printers, all good. We can just use cardboard. We can use pen and paper. Don't underestimate the power of pen and paper. It's a great way of doing it. So let's recap. I've gone from the empathizing, understanding my emotions of buying this gift. I've gone to a bit of a defined space, ideation space, and now I'm getting into my prototyping phase. And you'll get given this whole slide later on, so you can all take this into your classroom and use them if you want. I'm also going to give you all these worksheets here so you can work through them in your classroom as well in your own pace. But I've got very limited time, so I'm going to jump into prototyping now. There's some great tools out there that we can use to prototype our ideas with. We use a lot of CAD tools, so computer-aided design, which is online platforms that allows you to design things in 3D. And the program I'm going to show you, even though it looks a little bit primary school, we use this for secondary school kids as well and adults. And the reason being is that it's a very good tool to teach someone 3D design extremely fast. I'm going to show you how this works now. So let's go into my screen. This program here is called Tinkercad. Now, Tinkercad is a very simple tool. What we allow, it's actually free too. So if you want to download this thing, use it on your web browser, it's all free to use. So what this does, it allows me to use some blocks over here to combine those into bigger shapes. So if you remember now what I was going to do, my idea was to build something I can attach to my glasses like this. It's going to record my wife's voice for the rest of the year. And when it comes to birthday time, I just tap a button and it's going to tell me what the perfect gift is. Because I reckon during the year, she would have given me so many hints of what she wants that being a man, I'm sorry, I probably would have forgotten half about it. I'm sorry, I apologize. But this device will help me get out of trouble, right? That's my idea, right? We'll see how it goes. And if I solve this idea, I reckon every man on the planet that is married has the same problem, right? So you might be able to buy this later on. We'll see how we go. All right, so back into our little tool here. If this looks overwhelming, don't worry. We've got plenty of PDs and stuff you can do around this. It's a very simple tool to use. And with any tools like this, once you get the kids to learn how to use these things, they will teach you. It's a very interactive tool and will show you very quickly how to do this thing. But in the most simple way, what we do, we just drag these blocks over here. So here I've got a bit of a cube. I can change the size of the cube just by moving these things around. And I can change the height of it. And I can also type in here in millimeter what the size should be. So these blocks basically have two states. They can be a solid or they can be a hole. If I make this into a solid like this, I can make it a little bigger and I can change the color by clicking up here. I'm going to make this one blue, for example. That is now a solid object. Now, as I said to you before, this looks a bit primary school, yes, but you can do advanced designs with this tool. So follow me through and see how we go. So if I don't want to create a hole in this design, what I can do is basically taking one of these cylinders here. I'm going to make it a little bit higher like that. I make the size a little bit more like that. And I can make this into a hole. I can do a solid. I can make it a hole. I will now put this in the center here. And this is the trick with Tinkercad. The way it works, you get to group these things together to make it into one object. So if I now select both of these, I select group like that. I'm going to wait a little bit for the crunch to it. Now this is my new 3D object, right? Just a little box with a hole in it. I can select the box and I can ungroup it, and back comes all the little things that I had before. Cool. All right, back to me quickly. As I said to you, I've got a little bit of limited time to do this. I'm going to do it pretty quickly today, but hopefully you'll follow me through. We've gone through our design thinking process. I've looked at my empathizing around my problem, the gift-giving experience in this case. I've looked at my solution, and now I'm going to start designing my solution so I can visualize what this is all about. So back into Tinkercad again. So in my case, I'm going to try to put I'm going to make some glasses in here. So I'm going to take this little cylinder like that. I'm going to make it a little bit less high. I'm going to make the sides a bit smoother like that. And here, if you click it like this and you rotate this around, not that much, you can basically lift this thing. Sorry. You can lift this thing up just like that. I'm going to lift it up a little bit. So this is going to be my glasses. All right. Can I show you exactly what my beautiful design will be so I can properly sell this thing later on? So I can now select that. I can duplicate this thing just by clicking this little button right here. And then I move this over here. So my two little shades here, they're going to be pretty cool. So I'm going to make them into a sort of gray shades like that. I'm going to make another little piece of my glasses like that. And move this in here. Move it up a little bit. Move to the side. So this phase is all about prototyping. You can do this with cardboard as well. I'm just doing this in 3D because if you don't have material like cardboard, this is a very cheap way of doing it. This software is absolutely free. So that's my first part of the glasses. I'm just going to make them, I'm going to group those things together just like that. And that's the first bit. Any good glasses, at least the ones I've got, they have some stuff you can put behind your ears as well. So you're going to put one of those up there. Maybe not so long. Like that, something. I'm going to put that in there. Yeah, that's pretty good. I'm going to take that and duplicate that as well. And I'm going to put that over there. Bang. And now I'm going to group them all together and we are going to create a pair of glasses. Now, back to me again. So part of this seminar was about innovation, entrepreneurship. So I'm showing you now an innovation entrepreneurship process. We take ideas and turn that into outcomes. And you can apply this to any ideas that you have. We're also looking at cross-curricular implementation of STEM education. This is where this is so important. I could have just taught you coding today in isolation without any real world problem solving at all. Trust me, the moment the kids start doing real world problem solving, that's when STEM education really takes off and makes a lot more sense. And that's what this is all about. So back to my screen again, back to my beautiful glasses right here. There they are. Amazing. So this is basically the props to attach my device to. So my device will be a little box, and due to my limited time today, I'm going to make it a little bit snazzy, but not too funky. I'm going to have a little device sitting over here. It's going to attach to my glasses like that. I'm also going to have a little antenna here. There's going to be a very, very safe antenna. It sits on the side here. I want this to be like that. And when you start doing this with your kids, you'd be amazed what ideas the kids will come up with. Because in this case here, I said, this is not about perfection, right? This is about the kids going, I have an idea. I will make something. I will show you how this works. So let them go off and let them come up with these amazing ideas. We've seen some absolutely incredible ideas that kids are coming up with. So this is now my little design. I might put a little, what am I going to do? I'm going to put a little display on this thing too. There's be a little interactive display. I'm going to make that blue, just like that. And I'm going to move it this way. I'm going to move it out a little bit as well. There we go. As I said to you, I've got a bit of limited time to make this snazzy and looking pretty funky, but that should do pretty well. So I'm going to select now. Sorry, I'm going to select, all getting seasick watching me. I'm going to select this, that, and that. I'm going to group this thing. And when you group things in Tinkercad, you see everything turn blue. I can click on solid. I can go to multicolor and it'll preserve my colors right there. So my device is this. It's going to be a little device that attaches to my glasses, sitting right here. It's going to record everything my wife or friend tells me during the year. And after that year is gone, I'm just going to be able to get on this touch screen and just touch it. And it's going to tell me exactly what they want for their birthday. So that's my solution to my problem. So here now I've got my rapid prototyping. I've got this all done in a 3D design. And, you know, as we said before, don't underestimate the power of the pen and paper. Because one step we'll go through first, we might just start drawing this first before we get into the 3D design. I might just do my glasses like this, do my little design like this. put my antenna there. So getting kids to draw stuff is also really important here. We do a lot around pen and paper and a lot around cardboard and things like that. That's my beautiful drawing. You're welcome. We do a lot with pen and paper and also whiteboards. The moment kids can interact, they can see all these things, they can collaborate, it becomes a lot more interesting. Okay, so we are now back into here. I've done my beautiful 3D design. And as I said to you, you can use Tinkercad to design a lot more sophisticated designs. But what I'm trying to articulate here is that I've spent about 10 minutes with you designing something that's a very rough prototype, but I reckon you will follow this through pretty easily. You've got objects here, you combine them together, and then you get more shapes coming out of that. Very, very great tool, and it's free to use. Okay. Now, going back to our design thinking process again, all right, so we've gone through our little circle here, we've gone through the prototyping. The next phase here is evaluation, all right? So I've spent a lot of my time as well in the startup world. I've interviewed, I've mentored some amazing people out of universities with amazing ideas, but they all tend to have a problem with taking that ideas and transforming that into something of value for other people. And that's what we're trying to teach kids now all across the world. And that last step, which is the second last step, which is the evaluation step, it's so important. And the reason this is so important is because we don't like people to tell us that our ideas are not good. So if I showed you my design here now, say, look, this is my new design, this is my glass little recording device, going to help me buy gifts for my wife every year, amazing. And you go, I don't like that, that's horrible. No one likes to be rejected. But if you're going to become an entrepreneur, if you're going to teach innovation and entrepreneurship in the classroom, that is such an important process of getting students to overcome fear of failure and fear of rejection to really start exploring new ideas. So what I'm meaning by that is that in this red step, which is called evaluation, being able to talk to people and getting feedback on your ideas, it is so important in this game. So why did we then design this thing and didn't just stick with a piece of paper? Well, once we have this into looking something like that, we can 3D print this thing, right? We can put it into a virtual reality world. We can put it into an augmented world, which I'm going to show you very, very soon. And why that is so important is that rather than telling someone, look, I've got an idea, I can now show you what that idea is all about. And you can have input to it, and you can help me to modify that product or service, in this case, to be better. So the evaluation phase, the design we're going through, makes that whole process a lot easier. Okay, hopefully you're with me so far. I still think I'm on track, right? The last piece here now. We're going to look at how we can use things like augmented reality to even further evaluate this space. Now, I had some questions before about what is augmented reality? Well, augmented reality is where we mix the real world with the design world or the fake world, right? Or the 3D world in this case, right? The world that doesn't exist. Virtual reality, we've got things like this headset here. This is an Oculus Quest headset. We can put this on. It's a very non-social activity to do, but once I put this on, I can step into that world, right? And I can see this product I designed inside here. So I could put this design inside here and then show you exactly how this looks like. I might even get you to put this on in the virtual world so you can test this thing and see how it all works. Now, doing it with virtual reality is still fairly costly to do. So we do a bit of that, but we're trying to make this as cost efficient as possible. So many students across the world can do the same thing. So augmented reality is a great way of taking the next step of evaluation, interaction by students, but at the same time doing it fairly low cost. And that's my next step. Okay. So we're going to use a program now called CoSpaces. We use this program a lot. So CoSpaces, once again, it is not free. We can give you a 30-day trial if you want to trial this thing out, but it's fairly cost efficient. It doesn't cost too much to get your students into this thing. Now, the reason why we use this tool is because it's built for education. All right. So when we do these programs, there's a few things we look at. First of all, are the tools that we use cost efficient for schools to use? It's very, very important. We see schools buying massive robots for like, 20 odd grand and to buy one of these things. They're amazing machines, but are they really the best machines for education and achieving your learning outcomes? Maybe not. A program like this is fairly low cost, and you can do amazing things with this all the way from primary school all the way up into secondary school. So back into our screen, CoSpaces. Now, CoSpaces in its most fundamental setup, I'm going to give you a bit of a crash course on this now. It's basically a 3D world, just like this. I can move around here, right? Just like any sort of computer game. I can click play in here, And now I can walk around here as a user. It's pretty plain at the moment. I can sort of look around, but it's pretty dull. I'm going to try to snazz this up a little bit. So I can go into my environment here. I can select edit, and I can go and create a bit of a greeny, grassy area just like that. Simples. And this is another example where if you look at this and you go, oh, this looks very complicated, I don't know how to do this thing. Let your students guide you. They will figure this out, right? A lot quicker than you. But once again, this is a tool built for education. So it's fairly easy to understand and use. And as I said, it's a very scalable tool too that goes all the way up into secondary school, university students as well can use it. So this is our 3D modeling world. In here, we can create an environment. We're going to take our design and move that design into this environment. I'm going to do this fairly quickly. I go to my library. I can select the person. I'm going to select this person right there. I'm going to scale that person up a little bit. So this is my person right there in my 3D space. Now, if I put that person in front of a camera just like that, and I click play again, I can now see this person in my 3D world, just like that. And she moves around. And you can also use coding in here as well, but we won't cover that today. We can do that later on. You can create a lot of interactivity here. So back into, I'm jumping a bit. Now I'm going to go back into Tinkercad again. And here I'm going to take my design and export that design out of Tinkercad into CoSpaces, because I want to put this onto a person and actually get into some sort of augmented reality space where you can see this thing and you can interact with this design. So I'm clicking on this, I'm going export. I'm going to do export as an OBJ, and it will download this thing. There is straight down to my downloads folder. And in here now, I can go into 3D models and I can go upload, and I can select this one here, go open. It will hopefully work when you do live demonstrations like this. Technology is great when it works, but hopefully this will work just fine. I'm going to drag this model into my CoSpace. It'll think about it for a little bit. And yes, the proportions are a bit wrong now, but I'm going to use it like that. So now I've taken my glasses design and put it right into CoSpaces. And here you might add code to this. You might have a live presentation when you walk into this person. If I turn this on, I'm going to move these glasses up here. I know the glasses are very, very big, but I'm going to do it for demonstration purposes. So if I now click play, I can see the glasses in here, and you might have like a live demonstration where this might be a customer. And as you walk up to that customer, you might say, okay, I'm going to make that customer tell the story, what these glasses are all about. So now we're teaching the students really cross-curriculum skills here. We teach them coding, but we teach them design work and everything else they need to make this work. Okay, back into my screen again. So the last thing I show you now is a bit around how we can make this into an augmented reality scenario. I'm going to show you this quickly. Bear with me for a sec. Okay, I'm going to close this down. And close that down as well. Okay, cool. So we're now gone from, I've done my design thinking, all right? You with me? I'm just going to recap a little bit. We've done a design thinking process, empathy mapping, rapid prototyping, ideation, evaluation, and we're now looking at our most important step, which is basically taking this into a world where you can interact with this, where students can interact with each other and collaborate. So we taught you some skills around design. We did 3D design here. We've done a bit about 3D modeling, for example, and there's a lot more you can do with this tool. But for today, we're just going to stop there. I'm going to show you the last step in what we're going to do. I'll put away my pad, I'll put that right over there. I'm going to show you this little computer right here. So here now I've got a iPad, right? It's a fairly, well, it's not a newest version, it's basically an old version of this thing here. And if I go to my top cam, I can show you what I see. So this is my designed solution here, right? So here I've got the glasses, and I've just logged on to the same account as you saw on the screen, right? So if I now click play here and I go, click the button there, it will try to find a pattern on the desk. There's the pattern, and here it is. I'm going to do this. So here now, this is the trick. I'm going to see if you can see that. So here now, I've got my glasses, right? So here now, my glasses are sitting there on the desk, just above the keyboard, and I can move this around. I can go and check this out from this angle over here, and I can also check out the person. So this is now blending my design that I did with the real world, okay? So I can project it onto anything. I can project it onto a desk, I can project it onto a person if I want, but here now I'm mixing the augmented world or the real world with my 3D design world, right? So here it is, all the glasses. I can go in, I can check this out. If I get closer, you can see the person actually shaking their head a little bit. But this is so important because now students can walk around with this iPad in this case, and really examine this design. Right? So you get really into the nitty-gritty pieces of design work, and most importantly, collaborate as a team to do critical thinking, do design work, and that's just so important to get this to work. Now, I'm very conscious about the time we've had and also how much I've tried to cram into this time we've had as well. But hopefully you learned something around design thinking, about 3D design, 3D modeling, augmented reality. We can talk about this all day, but there's plenty of more PDs you can do through STEM Punks if you want to learn more. The last thing I'm going to go through, and I'm happy to share this with you, you will get given all of these sheets here that we've gone through. We will hand out to you so you can go through this in your own time. If you've got any questions, more than welcome to send us an email. Happy to help you guys out to get this working in the classroom. The last thing that we do, I might just cover this briefly. I'll see if I got some time. I've got a little bit of time left before we go into question time, is this. So when we work with our more secondary school students, we start talking about business plans. So now they've gone through the whole design thinking process. They've done the whole idea into concept and product. And now we want these guys to think about how could you turn this into a commercial reality? And this is very important because we said that we don't just need people with great ideas. We need people that can transform those ideas into value to other people. So we will give you also here a business plan, which goes through a few steps. The first thing is around the big idea. Once again, the next thing is about what problem we're trying to solve. And I'm skipping through this fairly quickly because it's a bit of a extracurricular activity we don't have time with today, but this takes you through the whole process of developing that business plan. And probably you can start upper primary for this, but also doing this in secondary school. That's for the prime spot for this. And who are your customers, of course, and how will you market your ideas? How will you price your product? And in the end, we're going to give you a full-blown business plan template, which is this one here, where the students can go through this thing and populate everything and develop their own plan for success for commercialization. Okay, hopefully you're with me. Hopefully you took something away from that. So the topic here was about innovation, entrepreneurship, and cross-curricular implementation of STEM education. And this is very important. I'll iterate this again. STEM education for us, and that's our idea, that's our thoughts. It doesn't mean it's right or wrong, but we believe that STEM education has to be based around real-world problem solving, and then linked with your curriculum goals and linked with STEM tools like robotics and drones and coding. That's all good, but those things are only tools. It's only when the kids start applying those skills into real world problem solving, innovation, entrepreneurship, where STEM education really becomes what it's all about. I've talked a lot. Hopefully you learned a little bit. I'm happy to hand over now to Irma for a bit of questions if there are any. So question away.
Thank you, Michael. That was impressive. My favorite was that virtual glasses on that iPad. That was really good. And let's move on. We have quite a bit of time left for question and answer session. Let's dive into our first question. The first one of the audience asked, what is the name of the app? I think the participant was asking about the app before you went to the CoSpace one, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, no worries at all. So what I'll do, I'll share my screen so I can show you. So if you type in Tinkercad, hang on, Tinkercad.com, that's it. But what might be easier is just called Tinkercad. But what I might do is that we can share with you, I'll share this whole class structure with your members if you want to. So in here, you got everything in terms of how to access Tinkercad, what to use, how to log on, how to create your account. So if I share this whole class with your teachers, you get a good understanding of how we structure our classes, but also all the information is in there for you to run this class in your own classroom. That might be more helpful in the end.
Thank you, Michael. I hope that answered that question, Bapak atau Ibu, who asked that question. And let's move into the next one. It's quite long. Would you like to read it, or would you like me to read it out for you?
That's fine. Is it in the Q&A?
Yes, it is in the Q&A box.
It is from Isa.
Yes. Isa. Bapak Isa Ansori, Mr. Isa Ansori.
Okay, I'm going to read your question, so just bear with me for a second. Perfect. Very impressed with the explanation on STEM punks. Thank you very much. Very inspiring. I like that. Well done. Yep. Okay. Okay. So the question in essence is that she's asking that she likes the programs, which is great, but how do you then implement these programs in the school, all right? Especially around the COVID-19 and the pandemic. So I'll tell you a quick story. Well, honestly, I think this relates to everyone that listens to this webinar today, and that is that, you know, in 2020, or 2019, we did a lot of work in schools, face-to-face communication, teach PD, school incursions. In 2020, that didn't exist anymore. We had to transform our whole business to deliver this distance-wise. So basically doing this online. So the short answer is that as long as you have an internet connection, all the programs that I've shown you, so all the student programs that I showed you before, so these things in here, I'm going to show you quickly. If I can go back into here. So basically all these student classes right here that we have are all done online. So we can do this as pre-recorded classes, or we can do this live classes like we're doing today. So I think the short answer there is that we've found that the importance here is that just doing a Zoom link like this without having the interactivity, without having the back-end learning management system, it's very hard to do this kind of education. But since we now have a very structured back-end with step-by-step instructions, video instructions, and we can also do a broadcast like this as a live classroom where our teachers comes to your classroom, that works really well. So a very long answer to a short question, Isa. I think in short is that online learning works really well. If you do it this way with live productions, almost like a TV show, with handouts in the classroom, we can equip your teachers with that gear on the ground. That works extremely well. So we can definitely help you in school and doing this as a distance education program. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Michael. Let's dive into the next one. What impact could, all right. What impact could augmented reality give to education?
That's a very good question. So I've shown you today augmented reality. I also touched on this, all right? So this is virtual reality. I think both of those are equally important when we answer that question. So virtual reality is just a tool. When technology like this comes around, when augmented reality comes around, as human beings, we tend to go, wow, this is their solution to all education. We just can't do that. It doesn't work that way. Augmented reality is a great way for students to get excited about a topic, for starters here. So there's a very delicate balancing act here between education and entertainment. If we purely do entertainment, we lose education value, but we get kids interested in what we want them to do. If we purely do education, and this means I'm going to give you a book around the physics and math and you're going to fall asleep because it's too thick and I want to read it, that doesn't work either. But if you combine these things in the middle, it tends to work extremely well. So back to your question, augmented reality is great because it excites kids to get involved. It's such a cool thing to do, and that has a lot of value. But as they explore that and use that technology, we can teach them all that deep learning behind that. So that's the fundamental philosophy I have about why would I use augmented reality or VR in education. The second thing is that augmented reality is a really cool tool for collaboration. And as we saw in this, hopefully in this webinar today, is that I've now taken my idea up here, down on a piece of paper, into a 3D design model, and then to something I can see, I can interact with, I can see it here, I can walk around it. So the whole thing about collaboration, teamwork becomes a lot easier, all right? So now we've done 3D modeling, but it doesn't just live in a computer. It's been taken out in the real world, I can see it and interact with it. That to me is where augmented reality makes the biggest difference. And it is used around the world. Like you got surgeons now using that to sort of collaborate with surgeons all around the world when they do live operations, and they're using augmented reality to make that happen. So I think it's important as a technology that we actually teach kids how it works and how it can be applied to solve problems. But as I said to you, all this stuff here, you know, VR, AR, it's not the end solution. It's just a tool to enhance education with.
Thank you. Thanks for the question. Let me check the Q&A box again.
there's the one from Kevin again. I can take that one if you want.
Yes, you could
So
read that out,
so Kevin asked about, I'm not sure if you all can see the question, but Kevin asked about, thank you very much for the answer to my question about AR. He then says, how can we start implementing AR into our learning methods? So there's multiple ways you can do this. To do AR in a half decent way, you need, iPads are easiest to use. You can use Android devices as well. You can use phones. So I think the cheapest way to get into this would probably be using a modern phone, a mobile phone, because you can do augmented reality with that phone. Augmented reality relies on a few things. So I've got an iPad that I use today. And of course, this only works because I've got a camera right up here. And this camera is quite good at detecting patterns. So I just detected a pattern over here, and I can then overlay my 3D information from here onto that pattern on the desk. So what I'm trying to say is that you need a half decent technology to make this happen. iPads are great. You don't need the latest ones, but the 6th or 5th generation is fine of iPads. Android tablets probably a bit cheaper to do it, but you need some of the latest ones you can do it with, and mobile phones will work as well. Then it comes back to the software that you use. So plenty of augmented reality, what I would call entertainment apps out there. If you're going to use this in the classroom as an education tool, I would definitely recommend CoSpaces. So I showed you CoSpaces before. I'm just going to load that up on my screen again. So move that up there. So I showed you this before. This is CoSpaces. CoSpaces is great. It's built for education. Yes, it comes with a price tag, but it's not too bad. And we can give you 30 days for free if you want to try this thing out. Happy to help you with that. So once again, long answer, short question, but you need a decent hardware. iPads are the best. They're the one I recommend. But then CoSpaces is great to get into this thing. If you just want to play with it, there's plenty of free apps out there too. There's some great apps using augmented reality to measure things. So you can point an iPhone towards a desk and you can measure the exact length just by using AR. So I hope that answered your questions. If there's any more questions coming in. You got any more there, Emma?
Yes, please. If you could read that out to us, please.
Yeah. So Lucy, I think hopefully pronounced right. She's got a question saying, I'm teaching English. How's the role of English language in this STEM approach? Very, very good question. So I led by saying that this is about cross-curricular implementation of STEM education. We don't want this to become a technology frenzy that only technology people are using. So to answer your question, I'll go back into CoSpaces. You saw a bit about how we created a 3D world in CoSpaces. We've got kids who design complete tours of their school in that 3D world. They have to write that story. So storytelling narrative, extremely important here. So we can make interactive worlds with the actual little 3D models inside that 3D world, talks back to the user walking through that world. And if we use something like this, it becomes very interactive to walk up to that person and talk to them. If we then talk about English as a language and writing as a whole in terms of innovation, entrepreneurship, that is critical. Because as we spoke about, looked at the last slide was about our business plan. You can't sell your things unless you can't communicate, right? So communication is extremely important. And we always teach our kids in part of our innovation entrepreneurship programs about storytelling. Storytelling is so, so important. It doesn't matter how good your product is, unless you can tell a compelling story and sell this story with great conviction and amazing language skills, you got nothing. So once again, this whole program is about cross-curricular implementation. I mean that. Yes, there's 3D modeling, design in here, but the storytelling, the writing of the content is critical to make this work.
Thank you,
I hope that
Michael.
answers. It's a very long answer again. I get very carried. I'm very passionate about this. So hopefully I answered your question.
Thank you. Thank you for that. We'll appreciate that. And before the webinar, we ask our participants, our attendees offline during the registration process if they have any questions that they would like to ask you. Yep. One of the questions that was someone asked how to make kids comfortable to learn during online school.
Yes. So I think we've seen this in Australia as well. You know, during 2020, we had to go everything online. It's a very hard thing to do. I think the framework of the school and the environment of the school is there to provide a learning environment. Once you do that from home, it's quite a tricky thing to do. I can only speak from experience how this worked for us. We realized early on that to do online education like this, you can't just do a Zoom link and fussy backgrounds and it looks half dodgy. You need to make this look good, first of all. It has to be structured learning. And by having a structured learning process like this with structured step-by-step in here, that makes this really, really feasible to do. That's the first thing. So structured LMS in the back end, so learning management system in the back end, so students can go back and learn again. Because you see with the programs here, we've got a recorded class here. So if I'm a student now, I watch this seminar online, I can go back and watch this in my own time. So now you get this beautiful thing about the teacher can be the teacher, interact with the student live like this, but the student can then go back and do self-guided learning in their own time. The next thing that we learned is that by having the ability to do things like this, so rather than you just staring at this camera right here, if I can take you onto here, I'm going to do a little design over here, I'm going to draw something. It's just like a TV show, right? So if you're watching a TV show where this is the camera angle for 2 hours, you're not going to watch it. Good shows is all about quick cuts and different camera angles. So by having the ability now to go from here to here into here, I'm making this now a much more interactive learning process for the kids. Because in the end, this is about a learning process. The issue you've got when you're doing this online is to get their attention. Because you are now managing that classroom and those kids and that behavior remotely, which is quite a hard thing to do. So you have to make it entertaining. You have to get that entertainment angle into everything that you do. And that's what we do here. We balance entertainment with education in a very, very careful way. I hope that answered your question a little bit.
Thank you, Michael. We have a few more questions. If you'd like to check the box, the Q&A box. The one from Miss Ishtihadi Camelia.
Yes. Have you got, is that part of the list, Irma, or?
No, this is totally new.
Okay, perfect. Are you reading them? I can't see them on right now. Which one is that?
Oh, you can't. Okay, I'll read it out. Ibu Istihadi Camelia asked, how about assessment in STEM education? Is it possible to assess STEM education using pencil and paper tests?
This is a very good question. All right. So, and this can get a little bit controversial as well, because, you know, let's take a step back. So in my own profession, I've spent about 15 years of my life taking ideas and transforming those ideas into global businesses. Some very successful global businesses. So I guess then I look back at the journey and say, okay, what are the most important skills in making that work? Because I would love to assess my students and teach my students those skills. So I firmly believe that there is an assessment part in terms of, can we add up these numbers? Can we apply these skills to solve this problem? Those things are the stock standard way we assess things for a very long time. But I think also there's time for change in terms of how we look at the whole assessment process, because what's becoming really important in the world these days is things like critical thinking, ability to evaluate ideas and transform ideas into value, like we try to do during this session here. So I think on one side, I think you can assess STEM skills like today in terms of, okay, the 3D modeling tool that we use. I can directly assess your ability to make a 3D object and to export that into my 3D world. They are step-by-step assessments that we can do. All good. That's traditional assessment to me. But then we look at things like, okay, how did that student apply critical thinking? How did that student come up with new and innovative ideas and really explored those areas of, I'm okay to fail. I'm okay, I understand empathy. I understand how to use my emotional intelligence. You know, those things are things that we not normally assess in a traditional way. Now, I don't have the blueprint for how to do that. All I'm saying is that that to me is equally important to the traditional way of assessing our students. And that's why I think the biggest challenge that education as a whole is facing globally is that we want those skills. We want critical thinking, we want innovation, we want entrepreneurship, but how do we assess those skills? And in many ways, The schools that we've seen where this works really well here in Australia is that they don't assess. They do a project. They do a project-based scenario or a problem-based scenario where, yes, they assess the core skills, the math, the literacy, the numeracy, the coding skills, yes, but it's the outcome of those projects and those problem-solving scenarios that truly counts. And I think that's something we definitely should look at more. Rather than just assessing as we've always done, there is room for improvement here, and we can all work together to make that happen.
Thank you, Michael. And we have about 4 minutes left, and we have about 4 questions. So we'll just going to finish that quickly. So would you like me to read that out for you, the next one?
Yes, please.
Someone from the participants asked, thank you, Michael, for the presentation. Such an impressive way to grab your audience's attention using your high-tech tools. My question is it possible if STEM approach being implemented in elementary school, and how can this STEM be adjusted well in elementary school? Thank you.
Yes, okay. So that's a very good question, really good question. So today we have covered a process. We said we're going to talk about innovation, entrepreneurship. We've basically covered this process right here, okay? We've gone from empathy all the way into solution, problem definition, iteration, evaluation. I firmly believe that that poster right there, when that gets implemented properly, it doesn't just exist as a poster on a wall, it becomes a behavior. So what I'm coming back to is that today, yes, I taught you some 3D design tools, we use some code spaces for AR and all that stuff, but in the end, the most important takeaway today should be, how do I use this? And then back to your question, that process, we start all the way from year 1, all the way up to university students and adults, right? It's just what tools you use to teach that process. And this is where it really helps to have dedicated either primary school teachers or secondary school teachers, university teachers that understands that crowd and that audience. But to be honest with you, that process, this design thinking process here doesn't change. It's how you teach that, it's what tools you use to make that work. So I'm not sure, hopefully that makes sense. What I'm trying to say is that it's not so much about the specific coding or the specific sort of technical details. It's more about trying to get that to become a behavior rather than a process on the wall. And look, I'm happy for you to contact me if you want later on. I'm happy to help you with some specific tools around the year level that you teach. Because what we've done this now for about 5 years here in Australia, and we've learned that some tools work really well in primary school, some works really well in secondary school and elementary school, right? So you got to make sure you pick the right tools. And the issue we have today, there's so many tools out there that it gets very, very confusing. And as I said to you before, we are big on using the most cost-efficient tools to make this happen, because you can spend a lot of money on the wrong tools, right? And you're not going to get the learning outcomes that you want. So if you want some help around a specific problem or the specific tools you want to use for your year level, shoot me an email, I'm more than happy to help.
Thank you, Michael. That would relate to the next question from Mbak Justina. She's very interested in STEM punks and would like to know the contact person who can be contacted for more information. Mbak Justina, you can call me directly. At the end of the presentation, we will put up a cover slide with our contact details. But question through to Michael could be directed to us, and we'll send that directly to Michael. Yep. Thank you, Mbak Justina, for that question. And I'll read out the next one, Michael, from Pak Kevin Tamtama. I think there's some beliefs that art is an important component in learning. Do you have any opinion including art into science, or perhaps mixing art with science and technology?
Yep, I was hoping someone would ask that question, because as you can see from the logo, it says, there it is, it says STEM punks, all right? It doesn't say steampunks. Now, that's not because we don't do art. It's just very hard to trademark steampunks as a logo. But coming back to your question, I get this question a lot, right? Especially because this is the name of our business. Art is fundamental in everything that we do. And I mean that, not just saying that as a token thing, because art to me is truly about creativity, design, making beautiful things happening. So if you looked at what we did today, design thinking to me, and that sort of design process we went through designing those glasses into Tinkercad, there's so much art you can apply into that process. I'll give you an example here. I get this question a lot. There's a very passionate people that says, well, hang on, you're doing STEM, what about art? And I've got some great examples where art teachers come up to me when we start an engagement at school. We do a big program over 12 months. And we had some very passionate art teachers going, oh, we can't relate to STEM because this doesn't relate to us. At the end of that 12-month period, we had art teachers using this stuff, virtual reality, and they loved it because they can design beautiful dresses in virtual reality. So I think once again, you've overcome that virtual barrier saying, look, art is this or STEM is that. In this case, this is just a tool. And as it turns out, it's an amazing tool to design beautiful artistic dresses in. So once again, very long answer to a short question. This fundamental answer there is that art is critical in everything that we do. And I think if we just isolate that, we're doing the wrong thing. This is about embedding everything into this as an education process.
Thank you, Michael. And the next one from Mr. Hari Ratnopano. He thinks that STEM relates on innovation or making product, not for helping students understand single subject. So how can I implement this STEM, augmented reality plus 3D app into his subject or math? Thank you.
No worries, Harry. All good. Really good question. I hope they understand this question right. I'll give you an example. So I think the issue we have here is that the moment we isolate STEM into saying this is what STEM is all about, I think we lose the point a bit. I'll give you an example here. We do a very popular program called Roller Coaster Designer. It is a program for primary school where students design their own roller coasters. Now, if you think about that, that program starts off by our team going down to a theme park and they're going down the roller coaster. They're interviewing the people on site about how they design the roller coasters. Now, if you ever design a roller coaster, you realize there's tremendous amount of physics and math in making that happen. So now we do this in a way we don't say, okay, today, kids, we're going to learn about the maths of roller coasters. Half of the kids are going to go, I don't like that. If you walk in the classroom going, hey, today, kids, we're going to design roller coasters. And by the way, I'm going to take you to a theme park and we're going to see how roller coasters actually work. I reckon you get the whole school to come with you because once you get that interest for that roller coaster project, you can teach them amazing maths, amazing physics. So I think when it comes to maths, arts, physics, whatever, it's about the approach you take. You know, we got kids in primary school that builds drones from scratch. So rather than telling them on the day, I'm going to teach you the physics of multi-rotor flight, which is really, really boring, I say to them, look, today we're going to design drones. There's not a single kid that's going to go, I want to do that. But once I get them to design that drone and the drone doesn't fly, we 3D print these frames out from the to build them up to make them fly as remote control drones. At the point that drone doesn't fly, they want to learn about the math. They want to learn about the center of gravity. They want to learn about how to do, symmetrical designs. And at that point, we inject all that beautiful math, all this beautiful science and physics that they need to learn anyway. So once again, balance between entertainment and education.
Michael, we got 3 more to go. Please bear with us. The next question will be from Mrs. Nurul Izzah. Could we collaborate STEM education and local wisdom or ethnoscience?
Yes, if I understand that question, we love to collaborate. If that's the question, I think that's what it is all about. We collaborate with businesses, schools all across the world. We've got tremendous partner schools that work with us for a long period of time as well. And that's all about getting teachers to understand that mindset and the students to really apply those skills to solve problems. So we love collaboration. I'm sure Irma will share the details to contact us later on, but we'll love to collaborate with you guys. If you're interested, definitely.
Thank you, Michael. I'll go through this quickly. And the next one from Mr. Sutarto. He used to give science project to his students and the results were impressive. Among them are piano staircase,
Yep.
and simple wireless electricity transmitter. however, he feels that some aspect of the project are somewhat out of the syllabus. Sometimes he has to teach them something outside the syllabus. So how would you advise these two things to be accommodated simultaneously? I hope you get that question.
That's a very good question again, right? So I believe this comes back to the strategy of the school. Because I think with the project that you're talking about there, that sounds really interesting. That sounds like a project that kids would have loved to do. Now, as a teacher, you always fight this battle between, okay, this is exciting, I can see them getting into this thing, but hang on, I need to tick all the boxes over here to make sure I can follow the curriculum. What we see here in Australia is that schools that are willing to experiment and explore with items outside the curriculum, they become very innovative. Because I think what you're doing here is exactly what we should do. We should mix that whole thing about, you know, experimental learning, about critical thinking, about innovation into our curriculum. So I think if I understand you right, is that you feel a bit like, oh, I can't really do this because it's not really what I should do as a teacher. But at the same time, I would encourage more teachers to do that because you're inspiring those kids in really innovative ways.
Thank you, Michael. But Justina also asked how to teach STEM with online learning. Was this part of the earlier question?
I think I've touched on that a little bit. I mean, I can elaborate a bit more, but I think the trick there is that online learning in isolation, to me, you need more than that. So I think by having, as I said, the structured learning process, but also giving the kids self-guided learning. So if you look back at the example I had before over here, is that you look at the whole process we've set up, and that is that, I'll move that up there, sorry. So here you got the video, the recording of the actual content. Then you have your self-guided learning right down here. You then have another recording, and then you got self-guided learning. So what I'm doing here, I'm going in between, I'm the teacher, I'm giving you the knowledge, but then I'm letting the students go off and do something on their own. So the hands-on, the interactivity becomes really important here, because just staring at a screen, it's not going to solve it. But we can use this time to part with knowledge to set you up, but then do all the experimentary work in the classroom. So I think there's a hybrid model there that works really well. Hands-on activities in the classroom, us being able to work with the teacher remotely to get the program set up as a blueprint for STEM education, that tends to work really well. But as I said to you, just doing it online all the time, it doesn't work as well, because in the end, you are teachers and you're trained as teachers. You do the best work in the classroom, right? Managing the class, being the facilitator for that learning process. I think where we can help is to give you the blueprint for that exercise, for that project, for that problem-solving scenario, but then for you to be the teachers that you always wanted to be in that classroom.
Thanks for the answer, Michael. And the final question from Ms. Baik Fatmawati: can STEM be integrated into educational course like learning assessment?
Yeah, so we touched on that a little bit before. All the programs that we do, they are aligned against the curriculum. And as it turns out that the curriculum, even though it looks a little bit different around the world, around the STEM curriculum, it's fairly similar. So we do the assessment directly towards the curriculum to make it easy for schools and teachers to assess the programs that we have. But then you have that side thing, which is that you need to also be able to assess those softer skills, you know, critical thinking, innovation, entrepreneurship. How did they deliver the project and the problem-solving scenario? Those things are harder to assess, but definitely something that I believe should be part of the whole assessment of that individual and that student.
Thank you. Finally, we have reached to our end of this session, and myself, and Michael would like to thank all the participants. And Michael, thank you for the very impressive online class, and thank you also for the participants today who have stayed with us until the end of the session, and for the fantastic questions. And thank you, Michael, for the answers. And for those who will be interested to or have any questions to Michael, we will be sending an email of a survey also to all participants who are attending today, and it will be included with our contact details where I and Michael could be contacted for further queries or follow-up. And the recording will be uploaded soon to our YouTube channel, and you will be able to see it soon. And for some questions that were asked offline, Michael, you would be able to answer some of them directly. Probably we could send it to their emails after this session. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Baik, terima kasih Bapak Ibu telah hadir pada sore ini. Semoga informasi yang telah Michael sampaikan dan jawaban-jawaban dari pertanyaan Bapak dan Ibu memuaskan. Semoga kita bertemu lagi pada sesi Queensland Hour berikutnya. Terima kasih banyak, and bye for now. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.